So there is news and there is views and there is trauma. So news everybody wants, views everybody has, and trauma is also you live the trauma with that family, and you know exactly the process of what's happening and how it's happening and how the mortal remains will be brought. I mean, your mind is, I mean, actually in spirit you are with those people who are grieving. So it is a hard time. It is a hard time.
You get trolled a lot for it, even though you have made a huge loss and you've really lost something very important in your life because of war, but you're still in this country not allowed to talk about peace over wars.
Somewhere deep down you have that remorse that I played it by the book, I was a good person, and all of that. And uh, you never say why me, but you just, it saddens you that it just happened to you, that you happen to be the one who's standing, uh, you know accepting the tricolor rather than having the husband back.
When my cousin and the whole family broke the news to me, my first most innocent reaction that time was that, but हम लोग गॉड को हर दिन प्रे करते हैं, ऐसे कैसे कर दिया उन्होंने?
Hello and welcome to Table Talk. I am Jyotsna. As a semblance of uneasy calm settles across our border cities and towns, and the tension between India and Pakistan comes down a notch, as does the hyperventilating and the peddling of fake news from our newsrooms, it is time for a solemn, serious conversation. Terror attacks should not and cannot go unpunished. And every time the need arises, our armed forces rise to the occasion. They are expected to, but they also guard our borders, and they are that shield, that line that protects us from unimaginable loss. Do we only remember them seasonally when the need arises? Are we fair weather friends? Do we look or even consider what families of armed forces are going through? We all claim to be nationalists and very patriotic people. But warmongering isn't one of that. If you want to be a nationalist, if you want to be patriotic, ask the right questions. Ask why 26 innocent people were killed in Pahalgam. Justice is not jingoism. So all this warmongering, this bloodlust, and this jingoism among civilians who are keyboard warriors is easy. You and me are not at the border, it is somebody else's blood. In the aftermath of Operation Sindoor, 5 soldiers have lost their lives. At least 16 people are reported killed in Poonch during shelling that came from Pakistan's side. Going back to those soldiers who lost their lives, 25-year-old Murli Naik was the only son of his parents who were daily wagers. The son of Sub-Inspector Muhammad Imtiaz broke down as his body came to his house in Bihar, saying that he was proud of his father. These are the sacrifices that our soldiers make, and these are the sacrifices we will forget in no time. War is real. It is not a social media trend, nor is it a game for TRP. That even India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri was not spared trolling for his announcement of the ceasefire shows how such a serious moment became a theatrical one. But our soldiers and their families live a different life. They live with the what-ifs, they live with those moments of reckoning which change their lives forever, and they live with their fears. 2 exceptional ladies with families in the armed forces join me today to speak about their personal experiences and their loss. Diksha Dwivedi lost her father, Major CB Dwivedi, during the Kargil War. Also joining me today is Geetika Lidder. Her husband, Brigadier Tony Lidder, passed away in the Air Force chopper crash where he was traveling with the CDS Bipin Rawat in 2021. He was also responsible in a sense and immediately became a single parent to a 17-year-old at that point. Thank you so much for joining me today. And these are not very easy times, and yet there is an increasing need for some kind of sane conversation. So Diksha, I'm going to kick this off with you. In the last few days, this theater of war that we've been seeing. It's like an amalgamation of revenge games meets Bollywood to some level, with all the shrieking and shouting on television. What went through your mind?
Joe, so I had studied journalism for my master. I remember back after studying back to India, and I was finding a job, and I remember there was TV on in the background at some point, and there were journalists shouting on TV, and I had seen that, and I had said that this is the first thing that you are taught not to do in journalism, which is shout and give your opinions, and the attitude should be more truth seeking. That's the first thing that had occurred to me about journalism going bad after studying journalism. And then it brings me back to a point when I was 8, and I lost daddy at that time in 1999. My sister was there. My mom was 32, and my sister was 12, because he was like a father to many people he knew actually. It brings me back to a point where I was 8, right? And of course, uh, this is a video that came out now also, and I shared it on LinkedIn, where a kid was being asked from Pahalgam that how are you feeling, what was the situation, what happened to your father, all of that he was asked. And I remember sharing it as well, that this is the one thing any AI, no kind of evolution in this world in terms of technology and journalism can change this attitude of journalists, this insensitive attitude towards warlike situations. I was asked, in fact, that time we were in Patna, and a journalist asked me that, um, तो बेटा आपके पापा को क्या हुआ? And I don't think I said anything, and I just rushed to the stage where my mom and my sister were, and my sister, was acting like more mature at that time, even though that was not her age. And she asked me what happened, because I was crying, and I was like, I was just asked this, and I didn't know the answer, because when you're a kid, I used to avoid such situations where people ask about my father, because I knew that I would start crying, and I would not know why wars happen, and why did I lose it. My sister got angry, and she went and told the journalist that, hey, like, why such times are the most triggering for me and my family, because those who lose to the war, nobody else can understand it as much as we do. The loss, the cost of war. And even though most people in the country don't realize it, in grief, we can actually, because what we have gone through, we have lived through it. Intolerance in the country is very high, but in the homes where the war is actually beginning, which is our homes, which is the families' homes, we it's filled with empathy. It's filled with empathy of the families, for the families that may be going through something that we have gone through in the past.
Even though families of men and women in the armed forces are conditioned in a certain way, yet, when conflicts of the magnitude that has recently taken place, when that happens, what goes through your mind?
When the country is in a war zone, so everybody has their own internal war of their own. And that I would say for any Indian citizen, because they have their worries about the soldiers at the border, about the people getting shot, about the civilians near the border towns, and all of that. But families who have been bereaved in some way, on military duty, so that trauma, that vision has never ever left them. And when such a thing happens, actually, like Diksha also said, that you get triggered in your own zone, and it takes you a while before you recover and actually wake up to the reality of everything that everyone else is going through. So that vision, or the night Pahalgam happened, and it is, I mean, you may not even believe it, and many may not. But the night that Pahalgam happened, already 2 3 days, there were things, and there were news of raids going on, and or air sirens will go, and like everybody be prepared for air drills, and all that was happening around. And I stay in Delhi, so you're a little uncomfortable already. And at 2 in the morning, I was awakened by myself, and I got up with a it's something surreal, because I was actually dreaming a vivid dream about my husband, and I'm telling my sister-in-law, There were no gunshots. There were no gunshots. It was an air accident. And by then, when I saw the news, it's uncanny that Pahalgam had happened. I mean, Pahalgam had happened when justice delivered. The Operation Sindoor had happened. So, ever since, because your mind goes into such a state of unrest after that Pahalgam thing happened, and it takes you days and days to, and then all those visions and, so there is news and there is views and there is trauma. So news everybody wants, views everybody has, and trauma is also you live the trauma with that family, and you know exactly the process of what's happening and how it's happening and how the mortal remains will be brought. I mean, your mind is, I mean, actually in spirit you are with those people who are grieving. So it is a hard time. It is a hard time.
Well, there are 5 soldiers who I believe have died in the last few days. Geetika, after your husband's passing, you spoke these words that have become more or less iconic. We must give him a good farewell, a smiling send off. I'm a soldier's wife. It is a big loss. I really want to know, what does it take for a soldier's wife to say that word? Public scrutiny and personal loss.
Both of a level never seen or heard before by the person. The public scrutiny also at such times is very, very daunting. And personal loss is something, and that too in these kind of sudden cases, like those 5 families would have been. I mean, no one's prepared for something like this. It is sudden, and it is, I mean, it is a huge void in your life, and you don't even know how you're going to reach the next day or see the next sun rising. But yes, I think the strength is something that the forces give you. I think and I when I say forces, it is one, the forces which we have been part of, and then the divine forces. Because I think when they leave, they kind of leave us with some innate, strength. And to say such a thing, and for my husband, for one, was I mean, he was a very out there person, and he was our smile and his. I mean, we never even for the last rites, we couldn't find a picture of him in which he was not smiling. So I think that just defined him, and it defined us as a family. So I just I think it was just a reaction to any one of those press statements that I was trying my all to just give him a smiling send off. Because, I mean, and smile as in not a smile of happiness, but a smile of gratitude for what was and for what he left us with, and for the journey that we had together, and for serving the nation as well. So that was the smiling send off. And yes, it has stuck, and it has stuck, and I live it every day, and I try to fill my days with positivity just because I'm the soldier's wife, and I promised myself that I will smile through it all.
And somewhere in an interview, you also mentioned it took you 12 hours. Acceptance took you just all of 12 hours. To accept is the big one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is the top of the food chain, actually. If you go through the journey of grief, then acceptance is actually what brings peace finally. But some and those phases are cyclical, and you go back and forth with it all your life. So all your life you may have a little bit of anger, or you may sometimes be in denial, like okay, or but I think for me those 12 hours just fast forwarded the entire thing, and I knew I had to take stock, and like many, like many of our women who have not been spoken or heard about. End of the day, they are the ones who show up now. So when they say, when you lie, when you I don't know how profound it may sound to you, but when you go and sign on a bank document, and you have to sign either or survivor, you make your signatures when you open a bank account, and that is the one day it realized that actually I am the survivor. Now I am, like the air crash had no survivors, but who's the one who survived me? So now I am the survivor, and now this is my road. So it is what it is, has to come in your head in those first few hours for you to think straight. Otherwise, you will not be able to take a stock of your parents, your child, there is a whole lot that time to deal with. So it is best to accept that this was God's will, and we have to go forward with this.
Diksha, coming to your family and acceptance, you were 8, your sister was just marginally older, your mom completely had depended on your father. So acceptance came in different ways and different times for the family.
We dealt with the loss in very different ways. I've written it in my book, Letters from Kargil, right, where I said that Uh, he actually somehow prepared my mother because he used to write letters and he used to tell her. He had suddenly started sharing information that he never had to earlier, right? That, hey, this is a house. I mean, of course she knew they have a house in Greater Noida, but giving her information where the paperwork is, for example, or start tuitions for Neha and Diksha here, or XYZ. He had started giving this information to my mom while he was at war, while he was fighting it, right? My sister, she used to depend upon him everything for her studies. She actually failed an exam when we lost him. And for me, I used to be like his, friend who used to fight with him actually. So he used to call me Pepsodent. And I think it's taken me many years to make up for the time I didn't get with him. He I think spent a lot of quality time with my mom, my sister, because I told you earlier that the only years that we were separated from him were the last 2 years of his life. That was 97, 90 to 99 when he was in Srinagar in crew. Before that, we were lucky that we had him around until then. And so I think why I write the books, or why my sister also writes about war and war heroes and the Kargil war. It's one way of dealing with who we lost, what we lost, and like Mrs. Lidder said that we can't. I don't think you ever get over grief. I think every year the way you deal with it changes a little, and you can just channelize it in some way. How we are channelizing it is by empathizing with families, and by talking about the more important stuff when it comes to war, I would say. And I will continue to talk. Sometimes you get trolled a lot for it, even though you have made a huge loss and you've really lost something very important in your life because of war, but you're still in this country not allowed to talk about peace over war. So that is something that I find disappointing when it comes to this subject.
I think I want to ask you the same question. The amount of warmongering we've seen in the last few days, um, at times from people who are not living in the border areas, people who have had no stake or will have no stake, people who are likely to forget about the armed forces and the soldiers within a month after this blows over completely. What is your reaction to this? Or is there any way of putting it into perspective?
I mean, look at the way the entire country has been glued to various channels day and night. So these are unprecedented times whenever such a thing happens. And, touch wood, um, as a nation, I mean, escalations of this nature have been, they are the marked ones. And of course, we do fight a proxy war all the time. But the kind of attention this gets from media for the kind of war that this was, if I may call it that, or a very high level of escalation or near war situation, that is the time when the public sentiment is at the highest, and then everybody's need to know is huge. So whichever channel, whichever reporter, whichever defense expert, analyst, and all kinds of stakeholders that they bring in, so there is a lot of belligerence, and there is I mean, media does go ballistic, and that is why you get statements like only confirmed sources should be but then the frenzy of the population is at such a high level that I really don't know if we can, do away with this, because it is, I mean, the media is feeding the hungry public. And I work in a school and we had it open on that Friday. The entire night we were watching the news, and we decided to go ahead opening it. And there were so many parents who just, attendance was 70%. But the parents actually thanked us for having the school open just to restore normalcy in that child's life, because the child is also exposed to all types of televisions and all the screens and all the shouting and opinion throwing here and there. And children had I mean, we had a circle time for each of the forms, and they had questions like, are we going to die? Are we going to get bombed? Shall we store food material? Shall we stock up petrol? I mean, the kind of things going around are, and we are talking to a very educated pop strata. We live in Delhi. So imagine what happens to the rest of India, which is only, believing what you tell them as media. So responsible journalism is the only thing that we can always hope for. But I mean, the reporting was on that level of frenzy because I think you see the TRPs and they have a story to tell.
So we have a family group, and my brother-in-law said to my mom and me and my sister as well that hey, don't watch social media. You know, this is. I mean, we can keep talking, and I'll tell you this, and just stop watching all of that because it will just create panic, right? And my mom's cutest and most innocent response was that. Beta daddy also used to say this, right? And there are letters, daddy's letters on the internet जहाँ पे लिखा है कि न्यूज़ मत देखा करो क्योंकि इसमें ऐसे ही बोलते हैं, you know. And but so my mom said कि डैडी भी ऐसे ही कहते थे बेटा, but जो होना है वो तो होगा ही. But so I do have stress, but hope सब कुछ ठीक रहे, right? And I was, you know, in that moment my heart went out to my mom actually, because it's, I think this is the point of trigger, right? Why we get triggered is because it's almost as if these things happen again and again. An 8-year-old kid being asked what happened to your father, a 32-year-old new wife maybe, or a younger wife who just got married and lost her husband, and who's saying in one moment she's losing her life and second moment she's getting trolled on the internet. These things when they happen, it's almost like all of us are reliving those moments again, and that is the reason why it gets so tough for us to stay quiet and be like, this is okay, jaise bhi chal raha hai chalne do, right? I think like ma'am said very well, right? There is a trauma aspect to this also, which we should take very very seriously. uh, of course, like the officers, the men in uniform have PTSD as well, and but so do their families in some sense, and some bit of empathy from citizens of the country, including journalists, including social media influencers, should be there, because I feel that, you know, some kind of influence in the country should come with responsibility. And we should really think about it, before we say things, and be empathetic. So I think that's my 2 cents about that.
There's also been real-time reporting during this entire conflict.
You know, and some of us are like the refuge or the respite is in not watching, and some of us the release is in watching incessantly. So I have this laptop, then I have the phone, then I have the TV on, and I'm switching channels. And I have tweeted about it also, like, you know, I followed every move you made and every breath you take, because I think that if nothing brings peace, so following does. And of course, we have, I mean, touchwood, and God bless my husband's course mates are all in very right now very very key positions and who were along the line of control. So whatever, if I could just get all okay, are you okay, is or from their wives an update, was something that was, you know, like it was cannon fodder for me. So I think the need to know is also so if not that, then I've tried to meditate. Because this trauma will not heal. Anytime that we are in war zones or anytime when there are loss to lives, and it's one thing to have an accident in a city, and that can happen to anybody. And it's one thing to know that all those precious lives are right there and at the border. You can't be at peace. I mean, I have tried it all, and I can't sit with my job and I can't do meditation. I need to watch. But yes, responsible journalism as we go forward is what we can hope.
Absolutely, like जो you said about real time reporting, right? तो अभी तो आपका social media 99 में real time reporting actually start हुआ था on national television, right? And I know as a kid I was angry with when I was writing my book, right? I mean that time I would have been 25, 26. But before that, like in 2015, I had written my father's story for the first time, and I remember being very angry suddenly, you know, with a couple of journalists I knew, and I was like, yeah, why were you reporting real time? We were giving out location, etc. But over the years, I've come to respect some of them, right? Like I do. It was definitely it's a very inconvenient situation to be in during war, and do responsible journalism. That hey, you're talking to the soldier, you're talking to. I saw it in the sense that location is being tracked. But do I mind it fully today? Not really, as long as you're not triggering the citizens of the country saying, no, we need this, we want to do this, we want to do this. I think I'm okay with them talking to people on the border, at borders, right? Not people sitting at peace and giving their opinions for no rhyme or reason. I would say you should definitely give opinion, and as a journalist, you should definitely take opinion in a war-like situation from authorities in power who can make decisions for the country, or men who are fighting the fight. Anyone else, those opinions don't matter to me, at least to me as a citizen.
That being said, today journalism has come a long way from the Kargil war, where the reporting, I mean, and today I don't think any media had any access to even any one of those military, I mean, they couldn't even get a real time picture. All stock shots were being used, and they couldn't get any interview or any bite or any line from anyone in uniform. And all we had to do was, as a nation, wait for the spokesperson from the yes, the briefing which came from the government and from the army, and the combined briefing which we got. So, and the entire nation listened to it very intently, because they knew now this is what is the real thing. So this time, I mean, it's all for whatever the drones and all the pictures and everything. They had a few of those shots, and they did not have any, access within. That is how the military, I think, has operated beautifully. So we have come a long way since.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that was the most reliable voice we had throughout these last few days. Where we are at the moment is that we are now getting news of the funerals of those 5 soldiers we've lost. My question, and I know I've asked Diksha this before, but I want to ask both of you again, is that somewhere down the line, when things calm down a little bit more and, this plays out very diplomatically behind the scenes, we're going to forget what the sacrifices were. We always do. A month down the line, 2 months down the line. So do you all look at the rest of the citizens treating the armed forces as fair weather friends?
I would say that the organizations that we are part of make it a point to look after their own. But as a nation, if we are to expect that forever, I mean, they pay their homage and they have their days of where they salute the uh, departed souls, and they, do some events for them or in their memory and salute our heroes and all of that. But yes, I mean, I'm sure that public memory, as in everything else, is short lived. So this is the time when this, the furor is there, and we have this entire public sentiment towards everybody. But it's one thing to feel very sad for them and to tweet about them and say your RIPs on the Facebook uploads, which are right now going, and there are reels, and there is so much on social media also about them. And it is another thing to see how many will have that outreach and how many will walk that talk. But that said, definitely our organizations always stand by us. For the public, it is the people who are in your circle, the people who are loved ones for you, the people who care for you will always have that outreach. And that is on you and on them. But to expect gratitude from the entire nation at all times over a period of time may be being, utopian, probably.
It's great if soldiers have someone who can share their stories, because uh, yes, I mean, it took me 16 years before I could tell my father's story. Only then did someone realize that my father had sacrificed his life also for the nation, because we always talk in very like selective manner when it comes to sacrifices. I think something that we don't realize around the year, Joe, that for you and me to be enjoying this freedom, you, me, Mrs. Lidder, talking on Zoom right now, talking about this war that happened, or the conflict that happened, not war, but the conflict that's been going on for days, for us to be going to office, for us to be walking on the streets, anything in any city of this country requires soldiers standing in very inconvenient conditions throughout the year, and not only few days in a year or few days in a few years, right? Something that we have to and should, and at some point realize that this freedom is not coming to you for free at all, at all. Sure, you can enjoy it, but you should. I mean, I don't know what the answer is today, but I think it's very, very important and pertinent for the country to realize that, not because suddenly we heard sirens and we the heard this thing coming so close to home that we realized that, oh my god, this is what can happen. And this happens maybe all year round in some situations where the soldiers are standing across the year, right? So I think that it's it's not a lot to ask from citizens to be a little grateful, to be uh, to be grateful when they see a soldier again, and if they can just say how are you and take care and thank you, that would be great. But I think that is a this is a habit that we don't have, which many countries have actually, as citizens, that we should ingrain in ours, because this freedom comes at a very big cost and a very big price, that all of us should realize. Why only some of us?
Very, very nicely said, Diksha. The freedom does come at a cost, and I want to just take you back very, very quickly. First, you gave regard to that last day. Is every day in the life special, or is every day in the life ordinary in the armed forces? And, that waiting that happens when you're waiting for the news to come. What was that like?
Oh, that was like 1,000 deaths. I think, I mean, the waiting itself was killing. Just waiting for that news to be broken. I think that was worse than the news itself, if I can uh, think back about it. But that's something that I just keep putting away from. I mean, it's in some um, corner of my brain and heart, and not that I'd ever forget it, but it was like really, really horrible. And I mean, as anyone, as it anybody's guess, but yeah, I mean,
Your daughter was 17. Was she angry?
I
Was
think she
she
was just
just
numb. I think she was just numb the first 12, 14 hours, and she just couldn't believe it. And it was like so surreal because he'd left in the morning. But I mean, it completely shook us along with the others that we had lost. And like Diksha says that, we live under threat almost all the time. But and we've been through situations a whole lot. We've seen border towns. We've seen shelling. We've seen firing, we've seen escalations. So all of that, and you are a seasoned soldier's wife, and I'm a fourth generation. But end of the day, when it happens, it happens. And I mean, um, there is just nothing
you're
you
never
can.
prepared?
The helplessness is just too killing. It just tugs at your heart like, oh my god. And obviously your first thought as any mother's is the child. And so I think it's unexplainable, the kind of emotions that are going on at that time. But I must say that the nation in such times definitely comes together, and the nation does salute the soldier. And I just wish that, like Diksha said, that they continue understanding how hard the lives are, and how mothers are doing single. So I was doing a lot of single parenting much before that, much before I was widowed, because we are a lot on our own. And but then that end of the day, that download, and end of the day, that call, and end of the day, that feeling of somebody having your back was paramount. That's something that you just lost. Suddenly that umbrella is just gone from your head. And how do you deal with that? So I think there can never be another day like that.
Coming to you from what Geetika said, and Geetika, I really apologize if I was a little bit intrusive with that question. Um, Diksha, for you, it's been many more years. What has changed in the manner that the news comes out, good or bad news, is social media. When your father passed away, there was no social media, or or it was not, things were not as rampant, as quick as they are now. But if you would like to just take us back in time as well.
Joe, the major, I keep saying that not much has changed when it comes to journalism. Although you would hope that there are, with technology things change, or with so much knowledge on the internet about how journalism should change. But just to take you back in time, and I'm sure ma'am will relate, right? That when we got to know about our father, it was, we were in the train. We had just, I mean, we were supposed to be with him in Srinagar, and unfortunately, that time war was declared, and we used to spend all our summer vacations in Srinagar with him. And we had landed, and he had a conversation with one of his men, and I could see that the expression on his face had changed. And then my mom instantly knew that this is what was going on, and we only got 12 hours with him before he went for war. And he convinced us to go to Siliguri, which was our aunt's place in West Bengal. And so we were actually on the night that we lost him in a train. Now the difference between how things get announced today versus that time in 99 is that if today we were in a train and something like this had happened, we would have known. But that time we were in a train, and we landed in Delhi, and we found our whole family at the train station. And the difference would be that that time there used to be a passport size photograph that you used to see on the television and not on the internet. Most probably the whole country will get to know with you what has happened. Of course, maybe you will get a call before, but even then, I think because of the satellite phone, it could be that you see the news before you get the call. But because there was no access in terms of social media, we were probably the last people to know about daddy's sacrifice in our family. So that is the only difference. I think internet is the only difference. Otherwise, I don't think empathy has changed. We ask the same insensitive questions from families. We do the one more thing, actually, that's a good one more point. I think because there are so many people who can say whatever they want on the internet, I think the passing of information and the passing of this hatred, of the situation just spreads like wildfire today. That didn't happen then, and I hope that didn't happen today. I hope that we use social media more for good than bad, and I really hope that with this sudden realization that we had in the last few days, when war came so close to home, if there's one takeaway that we should have about talking in such situations, it should be this: that we should be more empathetic about these situations for everyone, because war may not impact you directly today, but it will impact the economy, and it will impact you indirectly at some point. Something that every citizen in the country should realize it sooner rather than later.
Just a thought, I'm speaking to the two of you, and to say it in a very simpler way, we are sitting here, but we're privileged in that sense. There are also families who lose their husbands or children who belong to the hinterland, who belong to rural areas. One of those who's passed away, I believe his parents were daily wage laborers, wagers. Geetika, what is the reality of those families when tragedy hits them?
And I mean, just taking off from where Diksha had said that, it took her 16 years, and then those were the days when media was not so, out there. And I mean, everybody didn't have so much, the media didn't have that kind of outreach. It took her 16 years to tell her own father's story, and people did not know. Everybody did not know. Probably only the forces knew. So I'm just hoping that with this connecting with the media and the positivity that it can have, that today those five families and many others, these five have come to light because it was this conflict which the whole nation was watching. There are conflicts like that every day. I mean, there are encounters every day. So I'm just hoping that whatever happens to those families who have lost their own, I mean, the media helps in creating that kind of positivity for them, that they don't have to wait 16 years to tell their story. People know about them, and people treat them with And it's not about any monetary help. It is about the sensitivity that you can bring about in the way people deal with you, the way people are around you. So right now, as we speak, I'm sure those 5 families, even the ones in the hinterland, will be well taken care of by the community, by their villages, because right now it's public sentiment and we are at an all-time high with nationalism. But what will happen in times to come is the true test of humanity and true test of our deep down innate human nature that we wish to explore and wish to implore as a nation. That don't be nationalist for a few days. Just have that, like how she said, that be good and be kind to everybody around you, uniformed or people who have lost someone in uniform.
Yeah,
Just
I think,
in
Joe, I'll actually like to add there, right? This is a gap that I see, and I'm sure ma'am has seen as well, that uh, the gap of information. I think my mom, and I told you, right, I feel very, very lucky that today my mom, my sister, and I are in a position to even be having these conversations, or me running a company of my own, or writing books. I feel like we are privileged today, because we had some contacts during that time who told us that there are scholarships available, this is what you can do, this is how you can go about life now after your pillar of strength is gone. Okay. But this information gap is huge in villages, and that is where most of our soldiers come from, who also most of our soldiers from there lose their lives. I really, really hope, and that this information gap is filled in some sort of way, where there are support systems that actually go to them rather than them coming to them. Because I think, like we say, right, grief takes a long time for people to then start approaching the right people. This kind of support system has to reach these homes, and tell them that, hey, no, life is not over, your kid can go to this school, you have scholarship that you can avail. I hope that, like I said, social media for good, right, and internet for good, if we can actually help in that way, tell these stories, media can do a big thing there, instead of just going on the national television doing all of this shouting. We can actually be taking these names and be like, hey, these are the villages, this is where they are, can if you want to help, donate this or whatever that is. I don't think it's monetary help, but monetary help does require, is also required after. So whatever, it can also be counseling, but I think this is a huge gap, and I do think internet today can help in that.
And it's more about mental health and media being that bridge above troubled waters, to bridge that gap and reach out in terms of the feeling of being healed and held. That's the most important at this time. It's the feeling of being held together.
just going to end with something I remember, Diksha, you told me. After your father's passing, you stopped praying.
I started praying last year again. But yeah, we used to pray so much, ma'am. I don't know if you've read my book, but daddy had taught us that you have to pray every night. Okay. And you pray, and we used to be so funny, because we would, if हम लोग गलती से सो जाते थे बिना प्रे किए, तो हम उठ
Then
के फिर
again,
प्रे
yes,
करते
I've
थे,
read
and
that.
then we'll
I've read
going
that.
back.
It's pathetic. It tugs at my heart in a very big way. That if I didn't pray today, then something will happen to the what
Yes.
if, which doesn't leave the army families.
So,
That what if I do this wrong, and then what if I have a little water on this particular fast, and the what if. Yeah, I've
absolutely.
read that.
So when daddy was at war, तो पता नहीं मम्मी ने शायद सिखाया होगा कि you ask for any wish, but you end the prayer with saying कि हे भगवान जी डैडी और उनके soldiers को safe रखना, right? And then 12 times Gayatri mantra, and sleep. And we did that every single day. So when my cousin and the whole family broke the news to me, my first most innocent reaction that time was that, but हम लोग God को हर दिन pray करते हैं, ऐसे कैसे कर दिया उन्होंने, right? And my and
Somewhere deep down, you have that remorse that I played it by the book. I was a good person, and all of that, and uh,
any sense to me, and I was like, God doesn't make any sense to me. And I stopped praying, of course. I'm sure my sister stopped, and I think my mom continued to believe, but yeah, that's the kind of heartbreaks you have as a child when you lose a father to to anything actually, but that's the kind of reaction I had as an 8-year-old who lost a father who was taught to pray by her father.
Geetika, were you too busy to have what ifs in the end?
No, I
Just
have it
getting
every
everything.
day. No, no. However busy you are, this thought can never leave you, no? It is like, and somewhere deep down, you have that remorse that, I played it by the book. I was a good person, and, all of that. And uh, you never say, why me? But it saddens you that, it just happened to you, that you happen to be the one who's standing, uh, you know, accepting the tricolor rather than having the husband back. And it is it's however busy you are and whatever life puts you through after that, I mean, that storm will only make you stronger than ever, and it will grow you in many ways. But the crack that it has left can never heal. So yes, we've all had our journeys of though I've never, I mean, I used to be deeply religious, and then I became deeply spiritual. So I've never asked my God why, and I'm sure He had His reasons. But I was those 3 fasts a week type of lady, and everything by the book, and all But when it happens, and then you learn to find your own peace somewhere, and you find to correlate this with some past life karma, and I find my peace in those kind of things, that this had to happen, and it is we had only finite time with him, and all of those things do start making sense, and all the books that you read after that, they definitely resonate with you somewhere, and they give you some kind of positivity and strength, always.
I would actually like to add there, right, that every time I'm asked that, hey, how do you remember this much? You were just 8, right? About my father, like I remember very little things, that how he used to cook for us, or what song he used to sing for my mom, or how he used to walk, all of that. I remember very vivid details of how he was as a human, and a personality. And I feel like that is for a reason, right? That in some universe someone knew that, like, this is all the time I have with him, so make it very vivid. I'm very, very grateful for that.
And I'd just like to say it's been nothing short of enlightening and just wonderful to speak to two remarkable women. Both of you are at different generations, and yet, something that links the two of you, and words that I hope a lot of people will listen to, take a minute to listen to, and read, and read between the lines and read behind the lines, so to speak, because there's much that you both have not said. uh, and yet, if for a discerning person, we can make out that there is a lot that goes on. But we continue to be in absolute gratitude to families like you both, and to the countless others. And I hope at some level we will realize that those sacrifices are not seasonal. They don't just come once in every some months. As Diksha said, the freedom, that freedom for us to even stand on a road, comes at a cost. And we will remain eternally grateful. For now, I'm absolutely grateful to have spoken to the two of you, and can wish you only the very best going forward. Thank you.
Thank you for having us over. And I would only like to end with a prayer that wherever there are other 8-year-olds and 4-year-olds, I mean, may all the Dikshas be held with love, and may all the positivity that there is, come to them to undertake their journey, whatever is ordained for them. May all the journeys of the soldiers' families be, paved with good intentions always. Because, like like Riksha also said, that we are lucky that we are in a space of education and cities like this, but many are not. So prayers for, the universe holding everyone together.